This is Chris Salter. I'm back, and I'm discussing what I call kind of the axioms of music. And I'm getting it a little more in depth here, but I'm trying to talk in a way that is not full of jargon. Maybe I'm using terms that I'm familiar with and that aren't clear to you, especially some kinds of forms of music. But I hope that this is at least giving you some ways to wrap your head around certain structures in music so that you can see both that there's a simplicity in there, there's elements of music that repeat and reappear and are reused and rehashed. Sort of like, if you learned Mexican cooking and you'd learned that, cumin is used all the time and cilantro is used all the time and, and certain types of chilies are used all the time. You may not be, a Mexican cook, but you can make a burrito, you can make some tacos, you can, make your own salsa, you can do some stuff. And that's what I'm hoping to share with you, is that give you some concepts and ways to think about music. So first you can notice them in the food, the music of others, and then kind of play with that and create that and go, oh, getting that, wrapping your head around it without hopefully a lot of the jargon. I'm going to use some not right now because I'm going to talk to you about, I said music structures like to be round. Okay, what do I mean by round? Well, rhythms that repeat and, different parts of the same length can be represented using concentric circles, right? So you might have, a circle going here, and then another part is going on in parallel with that around it, right? So they're going around in parallel. This is obviously not very clear. The point is that you can look at it also almost like a cylinder. So there's a cylinder is structured like this, right? And then on one part of the cylinder is one part of the rhythm, another part, and they're all moving in parallel, right? So an example that I saw in Brazil was the go-go, agogo, the bell part was going bop, bop, ba-da, bop, ba-da, bop, bop, ba-da, bop, ba-da. And the first drum was playing exactly that in the right hand, so it was bop, bop, ba-da, bop, ba-da, parallel with the bell, but the left hand was filling, so bop, 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 and it was just going in between the longer notes, right? And then the second drum was going exactly the same bell in the right hand, bop, bop, ba-da, bop, ba-da, but doing another fill going bop, 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 bop. Let me do this, I have to think. Bop, 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 ba-da, bop, bop, ba-da, bop. So adding an extra fill in between the short notes. This was all going in parallel, right? And I represented it as the bell part in the middle, and then expanding that parallel with that, the bell part and the fills, and then outside that parallel with that with the extra fills. So these start to form kind of cool patterns when you look at it as round. When you look at rhythm as round, you actually can see different relationships. And it's kind of very cool, and we'll have more examples of that farther on. But these, some very elaborate rhythms, like classical Indian music, will have circles within larger circles. So they'll have a cycle that's really big, right? And then like those spirogyro things, there's a circle going on inside of that, and then it all comes together and boom, and everyone's like waiting for the 26th cycle of the, House of Aquarium. They're very complex. I am not a tabla player, but I've seen that this is a real understanding of deep classical Indian music. They know these very long cycles within cycles. And it's very interesting. You can do that in lots of different ways. So any kind of rhythm is kind of a cycle within the cycle of the melody, right? So you have your melodies arc. Let's say blues. Okay, so blues goes through certain key changes in this amount of time, and in the meantime you've got your 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 circling in there. So again, hopefully this is it's just an idea, another way to look at music. Let's not get too lost in it, but I think it's interesting and useful. So harmonic patterns, like I said, like the typical blues pattern, can be very much represented in a circle, right? So coming back around, right? And the cool thing about that is when you look at that, if you're trying to play along with somebody and you get lost, you just jump back on the log, right? You have to wait for the right moment and just get on, and it's like you're walking on the log, you're dancing on your log, and you're in tune with the others, and it's this round kind of rolling kind of feeling. And I think it's a good way to look at a lot of music, is where in the cycle of the music is it? Where am I, right? Then you can jump in and kind of join in, right? And of course, dances, especially organized dances like square dances, will use these cycles as departing points, juncture points, and you can start to see this stuff, and it's very cool. Like circles within circles within circles, and they're all intertwining, and it's like a little bit of a watch, right? It's very cool to be more aware of those things. They're always there, and this may be very basic for some people, but I think for some of us, it's like, wow, well, I didn't notice that before. I didn't notice it that deeply, or that's another aspect. And all these distinctions give us, it's sort of like really, Mexican food that I use as an example is an incredibly rich cuisine when you really get to know it. I lived in Southern California, and I remember going, my mouth is watering, I remember going to these little hole in the wall, or these taco trucks, and it was some of the best Mexican food, much better than the fancy restaurants that I would go to. And they're like homemade, and there's just a subtlety to this stuff. It's a shout out to my friends out there, El Burger Luchador. They have a truck that goes around like that. But the point is that there's more subtlety in this, and there's subtlety in music, and you get a little distinction, a little bit of the salsa here, and a little bit of the flavorings here that make you appreciate, the really great cooks, the really great composers in a deeper way. I don't think that learning more about music is going to spoil it for you at all. I think it's endlessly fascinating, and the deeper you go, the more intriguing it is. You may master a certain format or style and go, I want something more interesting. Maybe you love country western music and you learn, the 3 chords, and then after a while you're like, well, what else can we do, right? So maybe let's add some cool rhythms and go to bluegrass, right? And there's lots of ways to go. You'll never get tired of music itself. You may get tired of a certain genre as you understand it. And it may be too simple for you as the only food, right? You'll always want to go back to that simple stuff that's great, but maybe you aren't satisfied just with that. So the next kind of thing to think about is that tonally, no matter how far developmentally harmonies will go, they like to come home and back to the starting tonality, the starting key, and those exceptions to that prove the rule. So whenever you have this feeling, and sometimes people will play with it, a composer will play with this, where you have this long thing, and then there's this cadence where it feels like it's about to end, and it doesn't end, and it feels like it's about to end, and it doesn't end, it feels like it doesn't end, and they keep you in suspense and all that. But if they don't come home, if they don't actually satisfy you at the end, you're like, yeah, I didn't like that. There's something about the roundness of going back home, whatever that is. It's in most musics. There are pieces that are ended abruptly for effect, but it's definitely for effect, because the expectation is that you come back to something that something that's familiar, and something that feels like home. And it might be really out there, but then then it ends with something that you feel like you arrived somehow. And even those crazy, all that kind of, they are coming home to a chord that they've all agreed on, and they're doing it in the most wild, crazy way. But then right, they finish. So that is an ache we have inside of us in a lot of music, and when we don't do it, it's because it's trying to be different from what we tend to.